The small town lay quiet in the early morning mist. The streets were empty, and the only sound was the soft clatter of a horse-drawn wagon. Carrying supplies to the general store, the houses were old, but well kept with smoke curling from the chimneys, and the faint smell of fresh bread drifting from the bakery. Everyone knew each other in this town, and newcomers were rare, so when news spread that a mail-order bride was coming, the whole town began to whisper and wonder who she was and what kind of life she would bring to this quiet place. The train arrived in the station just as the sun began to rise, painting the sky with soft shades of pink and gold. The young woman stepped down carefully from the train, her hands clutching a small trunk that had traveled many miles with her. She looked around at the faces of the townspeople gathered by the platform and tried to hide the nervous flutter in her chest. She had come so far and left so much behind to start a new life in this strange town. Her hair was neatly tied back and her dress simple yet clean. She walked with a calm grace that made people stop and stare. Her eyes were bright and curious, and she smiled politely at those who nodded in greeting. Many townspeople whispered among themselves, wondering what kind of person she was and what had brought her here. The man she was to marry waited near the edge of the platform. He was tall and quiet, with hands worn from hard work on the farm. He had heard stories of the woman coming to his life, and he felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness as he watched her step onto the platform. Their eyes met, and for a moment neither spoke, but there was an understanding in that glance, a silent acknowledgement that this meeting was the start of something new and unknowns. They walked toward the small horse-drawn carriage that would take them to the farmhouse. The townspeople followed at a distance. Their curiosity was a quiet hum in the air, but no one dared to approach too closely. They had seen strangers before, but none had carried the air of mystery and quiet strength that she did. Ride through the winding dirt roads was filled with silence. At first they passed fields ready for planting and small clusters of trees that swayed gently in the morning breeze. She asked questions about the town, the land, and the people, and he answered as best he could, sharing little stories of life in this place. She listened carefully and nodded occasionally as if she were taking notes in her mind. She wanted to understand everything about this new home and the people who lived there. When they arrived at the farmhouse, she stepped down and looked at the small house with its whitewashed walls and simple wooden porch. It was humble but well kept, and she could see the care that had gone into making it a home. She felt a sense of relief, knowing that she would have a place to belong, even though everything around her was unfamiliar. Over the next few days, she began to settle in, learning the routines of the farm and helping where she could. She cleaned and cooked and organized things with a careful hand and a kind heart. She asked about the animals and the fields and slowly began to feel a connection to the land and the life that she had stepped into. The townspeople watched from a distance as she moved through her days. She greeted everyone she met with a smile and a kind word, and slowly the whispers began to change from doubt to admiration. She helped an elderly neighbor carry water from the well and offered to mend a torn dress for the baker's daughter. She did not seek attention, yet her actions spoke louder than words, and people began to see her not as a stranger but as someone who could bring something new and gentle into their lives. One morning she walked to the edge of the town to see the river that ran quietly through the valley. She watched the water sparkle in the sunlight and felt a strange mix of homesickness and hope. She remembered the long journey and the letters she had written to family far away. She thought about the man she had come to marry and how different this life was from anything she had known before. Yet in that moment, she felt a sense of calm, knowing that she had taken a brave step and that she was ready to face whatever came next. The man she had come to marry noticed the way she looked at the world with curiosity and care. He admired her courage and the way she seemed to find beauty in simple things, even in silence. He felt a growing respect for her and a quiet happiness that she was here beside him. As the days passed, she began to meet more townspeople, learning their names and listening to their stories. She went to the small market and offered help to the shopkeepers. She attended the Sunday gathering at the little church and listened to the music and laughter of the children. She was slowly becoming part of the rhythm of the town, and people began to warm to her presence. One afternoon, a neighbor invited her to help with a small community project. She agreed and spent the day working alongside other women, planting flowers and fixing fences. Her hands were tired by evening, but her heart felt light. She realized that this was the way she would make her mark in this town, not through grand gestures, but through steady kindness and effort. Town began to notice small changes. She was careful yet bold in her actions, and people started to respect her for it. She did not ask for friendship or praise, but they came naturally because of her thoughtful nature. The quiet strength she carried began to leave a mark on everyone she met by the end of the first month. The townspeople no longer whispered with suspicion. They watched her with admiration, and curiosity had turned to genuine interest. She had arrived as a stranger, but she was slowly becoming someone unforgettable in their eyes. She knew the road ahead would have challenges. There would be people who doubted her in moments when she would feel out of place, yet she also knew that she had the courage to face these moments and the willingness to bring kindness and care into the lives of those around her. She had come far from her home, and she had already begun to make a new one in this quiet town, and so life continued with the small rhythms of work and community. She moved through her days with patience and quiet strength, learning the ways of the town and leaving small traces of herself everywhere she went. People began to talk about her not just as the mail lord or bride, but as someone who was changing the town with her presence and her heart. The days in the small town began to flow with a quiet rhythm. The young woman had settled into her new home, and the farm felt more familiar with each passing morning. She woke early to the soft light filtering through the windows and moved through the rooms with careful attention, making sure everything was neat and ready for the day ahead. She could hear the rooster crowing and the faint sound of the river in the distance, and it reminded her that life here was slower but steady, and she liked the calmness of it. She began to learn the patterns of the animals, and the land. Feeding the chickens and tending to the small garden became part of her routine, and she found comfort in the simple work. Each task she did seemed small but meaningful. She could feel that the people of the town were beginning to notice her effort and care. They saw her taking time to understand the farm and the life she had joined, and it made them curious about her past and the strength she carried within her. One morning, she decided to visit the market. She walked through the dusty streets, greeting people as she passed. She carried a basket to collect vegetables and bread, and she stopped to talk to the shopkeepers, asking questions about their goods and how long they had lived in the town. She listened carefully to their stories and offered small pieces of help, offering to carry heavy baskets or help a child reach something on the shelf. The townspeople began to smile more when they saw her, because she treated everyone with respect and kindness. As she returned from the market, she noticed a woman struggling to carry a bundle of firewood. She immediately rushed to help, taking some of the weight and walking with her to the house. The woman thanked her with a warm smile, and the young woman felt a deep sense of satisfaction. She realized that these small acts were already making a difference in how people saw her, and she wanted to continue learning how to help the town in practical ways. The man she had married observed her carefully. He had been used to a quiet life, but her presence brought a new energy into their home. He admired the way she approached each task with thoughtfulness, and how she seemed genuinely interested in the lives of the people around her. He began to share more about the town with her, telling her stories of old families and past events. She listened intently and asked questions that showed she wanted to understand the deeper connections between the people and the land. One afternoon, there was a commotion near the river. A young child had wandered too close to the water and was in danger of slipping into the current. The young woman did not hesitate. She ran toward the child and carefully guided them back to safety. Her heart was racing, but she remained calm and focused. She handed the child to the parents, who were grateful and relieved. The townspeople who had gathered nearby began to speak in hushed voices about how brave and attentive she was. They could see that her care extended beyond the home and the farm and into the community itself. Word of her kindness spread quickly. The baker mentioned how she had offered to help with extra loaves for the coming festival. The blacksmith spoke of how she had helped organize supplies for the town gathering. Each act of thoughtfulness added to the growing respect and admiration the townspeople felt for her. They began to approach her with small requests for advice or assistance, knowing that she would listen carefully. and respond with care. She also began to learn about the challenges people faced in the town. Some families struggled to keep up with the hard work of the farms. Some people were lonely and isolated. She made an effort to visit them, offering a kind word, a helping hand, or simply her presence. She realized that her role in the town was not just to be a wife, but to be a bridge connecting people and easing their burdens in whatever way she could. The man she had married noticed these changes too. He began to feel a sense of pride and love growing stronger with each day. He saw how the people were drawn to her, not because of who she was married to, but because of the person she was. He admired the patience she showed and the way she learned quickly how to navigate the complexities of the town life's weeks. Turned into a month, she began to take on larger tasks. She helped organize a small celebration for the town, children preparing treats and decorations. She invited neighbors to join, and they all worked together, enjoying the time spent in cooperation. In laughter, she realized that through these moments, she could bring the town closer together and help build a stronger sense of community. Also learned to deal with small conflicts and misunderstandings. There were times when people doubted her intentions or questioned her decisions. She handled these situations calmly and respectfully, listening carefully and offering solutions that were fair. She slowly won over even those who had been skeptical at first. They began to see her as someone who could be trusted and relied upon. Her presence began to change the atmosphere in the town. People spoke more kindly to each other and offered more help, knowing that her example encouraged them. She did not seek recognition, but her actions inspired others to be better and more thoughtful in their own lives. The young woman began to understand that true influence came from quiet, consistent effort, and a genuine desire to help. The man she had married continued to support her in all that she did. He worked alongside her on the farm and encouraged her to engage with the community. He shared in her joy when she helped someone and in her concern when she encountered challenges. He realized that together they could contribute to the town in ways that neither could do alone. By the end of the second month, the town had begun to embrace her presence fully. She was no longer seen as just the mail-order bride, but as a part of their community. Her acts of kindness, her patience, and her willingness to engage with everyone had earned their respect and admiration. She had begun to leave a lasting impression that would be remembered long after her arrival, and in quiet moments, she reflected on how much had changed in such a short time. She thought about her journey and how far she had come. She knew that there would still be obstacles and moments of doubt, but she felt confident in her ability to face them. She had begun to create a life here that was meaningful and filled with connections that went beyond the simple routines of farm life. She began to plan small projects to help the town improve in little ways. She suggested planting flowers along the main street and helping repair fences for neighbors. She spoke to the man she had married about her ideas, and he agreed to support her. She felt a sense of excitement knowing that together they could make their home and the town a better place for everyone. As the sun set on a warm evening, she looked out over the fields and the small homes of the town. She could see children playing in the yard and neighbors talking on porches. She felt a quiet sense of belonging and satisfaction. She realized that her presence was no longer a curiosity, but a welcomed addition to the town. She had begun to weave herself into the life of the community in ways that would continue to grow with time. The townspeople now greeted her warmly as she walked through the streets. She smiled and nodded, returning their gestures with genuine care. She had learned their names, their stories, and their struggles, and they had begun to learn about her as well. Her journey was still just beginning, but already she had made a difference in the lives of those around. Hersha knew that the path ahead would have challenges. There would be people who questioned her intentions and situations that would test her patience. Yet she also knew that she had the courage and wisdom to navigate them. She had started to build a life that was meaningful not just for herself, but for the people of the town who had begun to rely on her presence and her. So her days continued with small tasks and thoughtful actions. Each moment she spent helping the farm, the neighbors, and the community strengthened the bond she was forming with the town. People began to speak of her not as an outsider, but as someone who had quietly changed the town through her kindness and attention to the needs of others. Her journey was ongoing, but already she was leaving a mark that would be remembered. Life in the town continued to unfold slowly and steadily. The young woman had become part of the rhythm of the farm and the small community. She woke each morning with a sense of purpose, moving through the rooms of the farmhouse and out to the fields with a quiet determination. The animals were attentive to her now, as if they had recognized her presence and responded to her care. She fed the chickens and milked the cows and tended the small garden with patience, knowing that these simple acts held more meaning than she could see at the time. The people of the town had begun to rely on her in subtle ways. She was often called upon to help with tasks that required patience or a careful hand. She mended torn clothes and patched fences. She offered advice to those who sought it and listened carefully to the stories and concerns of her neighbors. She did not judge or rush her answers, but considered each situation thoughtfully. She learned quickly that respect was earned, not through words or claims, but through consistent actions and genuine care. Were moments when she faced challenges that tested her strength and courage. A dispute arose between two families who had been friends for many years, but had fallen into disagreement over property lines. The young woman was invited to mediate. She listened to each side patiently and asked questions that encouraged understanding. She suggested small compromises that allowed both families to feel heard and valued. Slowly, she guided them toward a resolution. They left with a sense of relief and gratitude, and the townspeople who had watched marveled at her ability to handle delicate matters with such calm and intelligence. She also faced personal challenges as she tried to adjust to the new life she had chosen. There were nights when she felt lonely, thinking of the home she had left behind and the family she would not see for a long time. She missed the familiar streets and the voices of those she had known since childhood. Yet she reminded herself that she had made this journey for a reason, and that each day she spent in this town was a step toward creating a meaningful life for herself and those around her. The men she had married noticed these moments of reflection and quietly offered comfort. He did not press her to speak, but gave her space to process her thoughts and feelings. He admired her resilience and the way she faced uncertainty with courage and grace. Their relationship grew stronger as they shared the responsibilities of the farm and the joys and challenges of life in the town, worked together seamlessly, and supported each other in ways that deepened their bond. One afternoon, she noticed that the schoolhouse was in need of repairs. The roof leaked slightly, and the paint on the walls was peeling. She gathered some of the children and spoke to their parents about helping to fix it. She organized a small group, and they worked together repairing the roof and repainting the walls. It was hard work, but rewarding, and the children were filled with excitement at being part of the project. The townspeople watched as the young woman coordinated the effort with patience and skill, and they were impressed by her leadership and commitment to improving their community. She also found ways to connect with the older residents of the town. Some of them had lived there their entire lives and were often lonely. She visited them, bringing simple gifts or offering her time to listen to their stories. She learned about their experiences and the history of the town, gaining insight into the lives that had shaped the community. She valued these moments, and the elders appreciated her respect and attention despite her growing integration into the town. There were still a few who doubted her intentions. Some whispered that she might leave once she had learned everything about the people and the land. Others wondered if she could truly understand the ways of the town. She faced these doubts with patience. She did not argue or react harshly, but continued to act with kindness and integrity. Slowly, these skeptics began to see that her presence was genuine and that she was committed to the town and its people. A particularly trying day came when a storm swept through the area. The wind howled through the trees and the rain poured down in torrents. Some roofs were damaged and the river rose dangerously close to the houses. The young woman sprang into action. Helping neighbors secure their homes and protect their livestock, she moved tirelessly through the wet streets, offering guidance and assistance. Her courage and calm during the storm left a deep impression on the townspeople, who realized that she was someone they could rely on in times of crisis. As if the storm had passed, the town gathered to assess the damage and begin repairs. The young woman worked alongside everyone, offering encouragement and practical help. She coordinated efforts to rebuild fences and clear debris. She encouraged the children to help in safe ways, and the adults admired her ability to organize the work and keep spirits high even after such a difficult day. Her relationship with the man she had married deepened. Further, during this time, they relied on each other and shared the responsibilities and worries of the town. Her presence brought hope and energy into their lives, and they both felt stronger together than they had individually. They spoke often about their future and the ways they could continue to contribute to the community, and each conversation strengthened their partnership. The young woman also began to notice small changes in herself. She felt more confident in her decisions and more capable of handling challenges. She realized that the experience of leaving her old home and stepping into a new and unfamiliar place had taught her resilience and patience. She began to understand the value of listening and observing before acting, and she saw how this approach helped her gain the trust and respect of the people around her. She spent quiet moments reflecting on the journey she had undertaken and the distance she had traveled, both physically and emotionally. She thought about the town and the people she had met and the ways she had grown. She understood that her presence had already made a difference, and that with continued effort, she could leave a lasting positive impact on the community. Her efforts did not go unnoticed. The townspeople began to speak more openly about their appreciation for her kindness and leadership. They mentioned her help in conversations and encouraged others to approach her for advice or assistance. They no longer saw her as an outsider, but as someone who had become part of the fabric of the town through her consistent actions and genuine care. She also found joy in the simple pleasures of the town life. The sound of children playing in the streets, the smell of fresh bread from the bakery, the warmth of the sun on her face as she worked in the garden. These moments reminded her why she had chosen this path and gave her energy to continue engaging with the community and learning about their lives. Over time, she began to form deeper friendships with some of the townspeople. She shared meals with families and joined in community gatherings. She listened to their stories and shared some of her own experiences, learning to trust and be trusted. She understood that building these connections took time and patience, and she was willing to invest. Both the man she had married remained a steady presence in her life. He supported her initiatives and worked alongside her on projects that benefited the town he admired. The way she approached challenges and the thoughtful way she engaged with everyone, he knew that together they could continue to grow and contribute to the community in meaningful ways. By the end of this period, the town had truly begun to see her as more than just a newcomer. She had become a symbol of kindness, patience, and quiet strength. Her presence had encouraged others to act with care and thoughtfulness, and she had helped build a stronger sense of community in subtle but meaningful. While she knew that life would continue to bring challenges, there would be conflicts to resolve and moments when patience was tested. Yet she felt prepared to face these challenges with the support of her husband and the trust of the community. She understood that true change was gradual and required consistent effort, and she was committed to continuing her journey. In this new home each day, she moved through the town with purpose and care. She tended to the farm, assisted neighbors, engaged with children and elders, and worked on small projects that improved the town. She did not seek recognition, but her actions spoke for themselves, and people began to respect and admire her for the person she was becoming. As the sun set each evening, she would look out over the fields and homes, feeling a quiet satisfaction. She had faced challenges, helped others, and begun to build a life filled with connection and meaning. She knew that the journey was ongoing, but she had already made a difference and was steadily becoming a part of the town in a way that would be remembered. Her story continued to unfold with each passing day. She faced doubts, fears, and challenges, yet responded with courage, patience, and care. She had arrived as a stranger, but was becoming an integral part of the town and the lives of its people. Her presence was changing the community slowly but surely, and she was beginning to understand the power of steady effort, kindness, and genuine engagement. The young woman had become a familiar presence in the town, and people looked to her with a quiet respect. She moved through the streets each morning, carrying out her work on the farm and visiting neighbors, offering help and attention where it was needed. She had learned the routines of the community and the needs of its people. She understood who required extra care and who needed encouragement, and she adjusted her actions accordingly. One morning she noticed that the town square was untidy and that the benches and paths were worn. She decided to organize a small group to improve the space. She spoke with the man she had married about her idea, and he agreed to help. They approached neighbors and children, inviting them to participate, and slowly people joined in, eager to help. They swept the paths and repaired the benches. They planted flowers and cleared debris from the corners of the square. The children helped by carrying small buckets of soil and watering plants, and the adults offered their strength and skill to handle heavier tasks. As they worked together, there was laughter and conversation, and a sense of unity began to grow among the townspeople. The young woman moved among them, coordinating the work and encouraging everyone. She offered advice on planting and organizing, and gently reminded those who became distracted. She shared her own experience and knowledge in ways that were humble and thoughtful. She did not seek praise, but people could see her dedication, and they admired her quietly. Her efforts began to influence others beyond the immediate projects. She noticed that neighbors started helping one another more freely. They offered to carry heavy loads for each other and shared their knowledge and skills. More openly, they looked for ways to contribute, and her presence had created an environment where small acts of kindness became contagious. During this time, a challenge arose that tested the young woman's patience and determination. A disagreement broke out among a group of farmers over the division of resources during a dry season. Some argued over water rights, while others worried about their crops. She listened to each side carefully and asked questions that allowed people to explain their needs and concerns. She suggested compromises that were fair and practical and encouraged cooperation. She mediated the discussions calmly, and eventually the group reached an agreement that satisfied everyone. The man she had married watched her handle the situation and felt a deep admiration for her wisdom and composure. He realized that her ability to see beyond immediate conflict and consider the well-being of the whole community was remarkable. He felt proud to be her partner and grateful for the ways she enriched their life together. Even in the quiet moments, she continued to grow in confidence and understanding. She spent time walking through the fields, observing the work of the farm and the movement of the townspeople. She thought about what she had learned and the ways she could continue to contribute. She reflected on her journey and felt satisfaction knowing that her presence had begun to make a meaningful difference. She also became more involved in helping the younger generation of the town. The children were curious and eager to learn, and she took time to teach them. It's about gardening, cooking, and simple skills that would help them in their daily lives. She encouraged creativity and problem solving and praised their efforts. She found joy in seeing their confidence grow, and the children began to look up to her as a source of guidance and inspiration. Her relationship with the man she had married deepened further during this time. They shared the responsibilities of the farm and the efforts to help the community. They supported each other and celebrated successes together. They spoke often about their hopes for the future and the ways they could continue to contribute to the town. They found comfort in each other's company and strength in working together. The townspeople began to notice changes in themselves as well. They were inspired by the young woman's consistency, patience, and care. They began to engage with one another more, positively offering help and kindness in their daily lives. They were influenced not by words or demands, but by the example she set, the quiet encouragement she offered through her actions. A small celebration arose one afternoon when the town completed the improvements to the square. The young woman and her husband helped prepare food and decorations and invited neighbors to join in the festivities. People gathered, sharing stories, laughter, and gratitude. They enjoyed the work they had done together, and the sense of accomplishment was shared among everyone. Present during this time, she also focused on resolving conflicts between families and neighbors. She noticed small misunderstandings that could grow into larger problems and intervened with careful attention. She encouraged open communication and mutual respect and helped people see different perspectives. She did not impose solutions but guided others toward understanding and compromise. Her ability to inspire cooperation and goodwill began to attract the attention of even the most skeptical townspeople. Those who had once doubted her intentions now spoke of her with respect. They admired her ability to balance strength with kindness and to lead without demanding recognition, her presence had become a stabilizing force in the town, creating harmony and encouraging community spirit. The young woman also found ways to improve the homes and lives of the elderly. She visited regularly, helping with chores, bringing simple gifts, and listening to their stories. She understood the value of companionship and the importance of honoring experience. She became a trusted friend and confidant to many who had lived in the town all their lives. Even as she worked tirelessly for the community, she continued to grow personally. She learned new skills from neighbors who shared their knowledge with her. She observed the rhythm of the seasons and the land and understood how to plan and act with foresight. She reflected on her own journey and recognized the courage it had taken to leave her home and begin a new life. She felt a deep satisfaction knowing that she was creating a life of purpose and connection. Man she had married remained a steady partner, supporting her in all endeavors. He worked alongside her, offering strength and encouragement. They shared responsibilities and celebrated achievements together. Their relationship became a model of mutual respect, trust, and cooperation for the community around them. Young woman's influence extended to the schools and the children who were learning from her example. They observed her patience, kindness, and diligence and began to emulate these qualities. In their own lives, she encouraged curiosity, creativity, and respect in the children. Responded with enthusiasm and joy, her guidance was shaping a new generation and planting seeds that would grow for years to come. As the seasons changed, she continued to lead by example, demonstrating that quiet persistence and genuine care could transform the environment around her. She did not seek attention or reward, but people naturally noticed her contributions and responded with gratitude, admiration, and cooperation. Through all these efforts, the town began to flourish in new ways. People worked together more effectively, shared knowledge and skills more freely, and treated each other with greater respect. The young woman had not only contributed directly to practical improvements, but had fostered a culture of care, collaboration, and community that strengthened the bonds between neighbors. She continued to face challenges, but approached them with patience, thoughtfulness, and courage. She understood that true progress required consistency and attention, and she remained committed to supporting the town in meaningful ways. She had learned that change came gradually through steady effort, and that each act of kindness and cooperation had a ripple, the effect that extended far beyond its immediate impact. Her days were filled with work, reflection, and connection. She tended the farm, assisted neighbors, guided children, supported the elderly, and mediated conflicts. She took time to observe and listen, and to act in ways that created harmony and progress. She did not seek recognition, but the townspeople began to see her as a source of inspiration, guidance, and stability. The man she had married witnessed these changes and felt a deep sense of pride, admiration, and love. He recognized the impact she had on the town and on the lives of its people. He valued her wisdom, compassion, and resilience, and he knew that together they were building a life that would continue to benefit the community for years to come. By the end of this period, the young woman had established herself as a central figure in the town. Her efforts had improved the environment, strengthened relationships, and inspired others to act with care and cooperation. She had transformed from a newcomer to a respected member of the community through patience, persistence, and genuine concern for those around her. She understood that her journey was ongoing. There would be more challenges and opportunities to learn and grow, yet she also knew that she had built a foundation of trust, respect, and connection that would support her in the future. She had come far from her original home and had created a life of purpose and meaning. In this small town, she had become a symbol of quiet strength, kindness, and influence through her consistent actions and thoughtful engagement. The town had begun to recognize the depth of her contributions, not only in the work she did, but in the way she inspired others to act with kindness and care. Each day, she continued to demonstrate that even small actions, when guided by thoughtfulness and compassion, could create lasting positive change. She had arrived as a stranger, but was now woven into the very fabric of the community, and her presence was leaving a legacy of goodwill, cooperation, and hope. The small town had changed since the young woman had arrived. Life moved with a sense of energy and cooperation. that had not existed before she had become part of the rhythm of. The community and her presence was felt in every home and street, though. Farm where she lived with the man she had married thrived under their joint care, and the neighbors saw their efforts as a source of inspiration. The mornings were filled with activity as people began their work on the fields or in their shops. The young woman moved through the town offering assistance where needed. She helped carry water to a neighbor and guided a child who had tripped along the path she'd listened to the concerns of elders and shared her knowledge with families who sought advice. She continued to find joy in simple acts of service, knowing that each effort made a difference in the lives of others. She noticed small changes in the people around her. They spoke with greater patience and kindness. They assisted one another without being asked, and shared knowledge and resources freely. The town had begun to function more like a community of mutual care rather than a collection of isolated families. She had not demanded change, but her consistent actions had created an environment where cooperation and respect flourished. Man she had married observed these changes with quiet pride. He saw how the people had grown more confident, and how they relied on her presence as a source of guidance and support. He admired the way she approached challenges with patience and thoughtful attention, and he felt grateful to share his life with someone so wise and capable. Their relationship had grown stronger through shared effort and understanding, and together they created a home that welcomed and nurtured everyone. One day a family arrived from another town. They had heard stories of the woman who had transformed the small community, and they wanted to see for themselves what made the town so different. Upon arrival, they noticed the sense of cooperation and warmth that seemed to fill the streets. They observed children playing safely and neighbors assisting one another, and they asked how such a spirit had grown so naturally. The townspeople smiled and shared small stories of the young woman who had arrived quietly and through her actions encouraged others to act with care and thoughtfulness. They spoke of her patience, her willingness to help, and her ability to listen. She had not commanded respect or attention, but had earned it through consistent kindness and effort. The visitors were impressed and inspired by what they saw, and they returned home carrying stories of hope and change. The young woman continued to guide small projects throughout the town. She helped organize seasonal work on the farms and coordinated repairs to homes and public spaces. She taught children about gardening and cooking and encouraged creativity and problem-solving. She offered her time to those who needed companionship and her advice to those facing difficult decisions. She moved through the town with quiet confidence, and people responded with gratitude and admiration. In challenging moments, she remained calm and thoughtful. A storm approached, and she helped secure the homes and animals. She guided neighbors to safe places and ensured that children and the elderly were protected. She worked tirelessly through the night, assisting wherever she was needed. When the storm passed, she organized the cleanup with efficiency and care. Her actions left a lasting impression, and people spoke of her courage and presence with deep respect. The man she had married supported her in all endeavors. They worked as a team, sharing responsibilities and celebrating successes together. Their relationship had become a model of partnership for others in the town. They spoke often about the future and the ways they could continue to help the community. They had built a life based on mutual respect, trust, and shared purpose, and it strengthened the bonds between them and the people around them. The town itself had begun to thrive in new ways. People worked together more effectively and shared resources and knowledge freely. They solved problems with cooperation and treated each other with greater understanding and care. The influence of the young woman had created a culture of kindness and collaboration, and her example inspired others to follow similar paths. She had arrived as a stranger, and now she was a central figure in the life of the town. She also nurtured a sense of history. In memory, she listened to the stories of older residents, learning about the town and the generations that had come before. She encouraged the preservation of traditions and shared these lessons with the younger generation. She became a bridge, connecting the past with the present and helping people see the value in both. Children were drawn to her gentle guidance. They watched her patience and care and learned from her example. She taught them skills that would help them in life and encouraged values of respect and kindness. She celebrated their successes and comforted them in times of difficulty. They began to see her as a mentor and trusted friend, someone who guided without imposing and inspired through action rather than words. Her influence extended beyond the farm and the homes she organized, small community gatherings and celebrations. She encouraged neighbors to participate in festivals and seasonal work projects. She created opportunities for people to connect and build relationships. She helped solve conflicts and mediate disagreements, and people learned to communicate with one another more openly and honestly. Even as she worked tirelessly, she took moments to reflect. She walked through the fields observing the animals and the crops. She considered her actions and the impact she had on the community. She thought about the journey she had undertaken and the courage it had required to leave her home and start anew. She felt satisfaction in knowing that she had created meaningful connections and had contributed to the growth and well-being of the town. The man she had married continued to share in all her endeavors. He offered support and strength, and they celebrated achievements together. They shared a home that welcomed others and a life that valued service, community, and kindness. Their partnership was built on mutual respect and love, and it inspired others in the town to work together with similar less. The seasons passed. The town grew stronger and more united. The young woman's influence was seen in small acts of daily kindness and cooperation. She had encouraged a culture where people looked out for one another and took pride in their collective well-being. Her efforts had created lasting change that would continue to benefit the town long into the future. The elderly residents expressed gratitude for her companionship and attention. They valued the time she spent listening to their stories and helping with daily chores. They felt respected and included. Her presence had strengthened the bonds between generations and helped preserve the history and culture of the community. The children thrived under her guidance. They learned new skills and values and grew in confidence. They began to assist one another and the adults in their lives more readily. They looked to her example in their interactions and began to contribute positively to the town. She had planted seeds of growth that would flourish for years to come. Small projects she had initiated became ongoing traditions: planting of flowers, the repair of public spaces, and the seasonal celebrations were continued by others inspired by her dedication. The town had embraced a culture of participation and care that she had fostered through her consistent actions and thoughtfulness. As the town thrived, she continued to face challenges. She encountered moments of doubt and difficulty. She addressed conflicts and misunderstandings with patience and careful thought. She guided people toward resolution and understanding. She showed that true leadership came from listening and helping others find their own solutions. Her relationship with the man she had married grew stronger as they navigated challenges together. They relied on each other and shared responsibilities. They celebrated successes together and supported each other through setbacks. Their partnership became a model for the community and an example of what could be achieved through cooperation, trust, and care. By the end of this period, the young woman had become an integral part of the town. Her presence had left a lasting mark. She had inspired kindness, cooperation, and mutual respect. She had nurtured the younger generation and supported the elders. She had transformed the community through her actions and created a culture of care and connection. She knew that life would continue to present challenges, but she felt confident in her ability to face them with patience and thoughtfulness. She understood that lasting change required consistent effort and genuine care. She had arrived as a stranger, but she had built a life filled with purpose, connection, and influence. The town celebrated her contributions quietly and sincerely. They remembered her arrival and the journey she had undertaken. They acknowledged the ways she had strengthened relationships and inspired positive change. They no longer saw her as an outsider, but as someone whose presence had shaped the heart of the community. Her story became part of the town's history. Her actions and influence were remembered and shared as examples of courage, kindness, and perseverance. She had shown that one person could make a meaningful difference through consistent effort, thoughtful action, and genuine care. The man she had married continued to walk beside her. They shared a life of purpose and service and built a home that welcomed and nurtured others. They celebrated the growth of the town and the strengthened bonds among its people. Their partnership reflected the values of respect, trust, and cooperation that she had fostered. The young woman continued to engage with the community, guiding children, assisting neighbors, supporting the elderly, and inspiring others to act with care. She moved through the town with quiet confidence and purpose, and people responded with admiration and gratitude. She had arrived as a stranger, and now she was woven into the fabric of the town. Her presence, a lasting legacy of kindness, cooperation, and hope.